Today we're back with another tier list video, and this time we're taking a look at patch 13.8. Lots more champions being buffed, so stay tuned to see if it's your main's time to shine. Let's get straight into the fun stuff and start off with the top lane. In the gold tier we still have Kled, and in the S tier we have Shen, Olaf, Jax, Sion, Malphite, Riven, Rengar, Akshan, Darius, Zac, Maokai and Singed. Still plenty of options to go for, so it's a great time to main top lane. Garen's buffs are finally here, as we really haven't seen too much of him recently. Riot are buffing his base AD and armor, which will definitely help him out in the early game. Garen just really hasn't been having the best season, with so many other picks performing so much better. He is one of those champions that sometimes you can forget about though, and his damage can surprise you. Either way though, be ready to remember just how scary a fed Garen is, as he'll definitely get a boost in popularity this patch. Now the Lillia buffs this patch are aimed at her jungle performance, but every time this happens she actually becomes a really solid pick in the top lane too, so we just had to mention it. Lillia can destroy some low range lanes with her kiting, movement speed and her ability to thrive in extended fights. And this patch her champion healing is being buffed, so it could make her a really spicy pocket pick. Poppy is getting some buffs too, which may seem a little bit unnecessary. She's been in a great spot for a while, but now her Q and W are both being buffed. Poppy just offers so much from the top lane. Good wave clear, solid survivability against dives, anti-mobility with her W, CC with her E, and of course, disengage with her ultimate. There is a lot to like about Poppy, and she's one of those champions you always love having on any team. So if you do main top lane and you haven't tried it yet, now is a great time to pick her up again. Malphite has just been bossing it all season after a few too many buffs. He not only offers one of the best engaging abilities in the entire game with his ultimate, but he's also destroying lanes, dealing way too much damage, and not really dying too often either. Malphite is getting some nerfs to his W this week, which should hopefully make a bit of a difference, but we are going to move him out of the S tier. Let's move into the jungle now then, and in the S tier we have Jarvan, Fiddlesticks, Gragas, Kayn, Udyr, Kindred, Evelynn, Bel'Veth and Nocturne. Kha'Zix is back in the patch notes, receiving some more buffs coming in this week. He's getting a damage increase on his Q, which is undoubtedly going to help him out. We really haven't seen too much of Kha'Zix recently. He's not necessarily been that bad, but he's not doing the things he does best quite so often. He's going to stay in the S tier for now, and let's see how much difference this buff makes. Nidalee is receiving some more buffs this patch too to her base armor and armor per level. Sometimes the smallest changes are enough to really help certain champions out, and Nidalee is just always going to be one of those picks that's just truly lethal in the right hands. If you are an absolute jungle demon and you've got the mechanical skills to match, Nidalee is the perfect pick to destroy games before they even get started. Jarvan has been having the season of his life recently, and he's been one of the best champions in the game over recent patches. This week he's getting a cheeky nerf though to his AD per level and the damage on his Q2. However, we don't think these nerfs are enough to bring him out of the S tier. He's still packing some juicy damage, he has great durability and he can carry games very often with his really strong early ganks. If you are enjoying abusing Jarvan, don't worry about these nerfs too much because he's still a bit of a monster. Blue Kayn is also getting a small nerf to his E, increasing its cooldown by a second and reducing the bonus movement speed by 10%. Kayn is also in the best spot he's been in for a while now, so these nerfs are somewhat expected. The best Kayn players that truly know how to utilize the Shadow Assassin are a scary sight to behold right now, so watch out for those. Over to the mid lane now, and in the god tier we have Annie and Anivia. In the S tier we have Vladimir, Cassiopeia, Pantheon, Akshan, Ahri and Aurelion Sol. Speaking of Aurelion Sol, he is receiving yet another round of nerfs this patch. Ever since his rework, he's been terrorizing games, especially in the later stages. His durability combined with his relentless damage and surprisingly good mobility make him incredibly difficult to beat. Aurelion Sol is a scaling god that is also quite hard to shut down early game, and if you don't have the CC to interrupt his W, you may find it hard to capitalize on his weak early game, and therefore just be sat there waiting for him to 1v9 in the late game. This patch his health and armor per level are being nerfed, so let's see if they make a difference, but for now he's going to stay in the S tier. Pantheon has been dominating a lot of lanes in both the top and mid right now, and this doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. He can destroy squishy matchups and snowball super hard, but he also actually does pretty well into tanks too, with his Blade of the Ruin King and Black Cleaver setup. Pantheon is fairly easy to pick up and learn, but learning his limits is what really separates the good ones from the rest. And you can quickly see why good Pantheon players are all having so much success. With no nerfs coming in this week, keep abusing it while you still can. Ahri moves up to the S tier after slowly creeping her way back alongside the other best mid laners. She's always been a really popular champion, but now she's back to winning a lot of games too. Ahri is just a really consistent pick to go for. She can avoid the difficult assassins in lane, but she can also dive onto the wave clearing mages. So aside from a few specific really rough matchups, you can't really go too far wrong with it. Fizz is a little bit underrated at the moment, and he's having the best period he's had for a long time. The buffs he got back in patch 13.5 made more of a difference than people realised, and we were pretty close to moving him up to the S tier this week. Fizz has crazy mobility, insane burst damage, and ridiculous snowball threat too, which all make him a bit of a monster in the right hands. And for a champion, relatively easy to pick up and learn. If you haven't tried him recently, then you're seriously missing out. If you do want any help with Fizz's build or runes, then click the link in the description and download our desktop app, and let us do the hard part for you. Let's take a look at the bot lane now, and in the God tier we have Jinx, as she survived this patch without being nerfed somehow. In the S tier we have Jhin, Xayah, Twitch, Ashe, Karthus and Seraphine. Ezreal is getting a buff this week to his base AD. Now Ezreal is one of those picks that if you can play him perfectly, he's an insanely strong choice. But for the majority of the player base, he just really doesn't do that much. Ezreal is a really safe pick with that E making him hard to gank and shut down, but if you don't have the skills to play him well enough consistently, there's just a lot of better options out there at the moment. That being said, if you enjoy Ezreal and you can play him ultimately, you're going to win a ton of games. And with this small buff, the one tricks out there must be licking their lips. Kog'Maw is also included in the patch notes this week with some buffs to his passive, his Q and his E. Kog'Maw's win rate really isn't that bad already, despite not really being the most popular AD carry, unlike those tanks who are in every single game. Which is great news for Kog'Maw players though, because he can absolutely melt tanks, and if he's paired up with an enchanter like Lulu or Yuumi, he can be so hard to play against. Kog'Maw has moved up to the A tier this week, and with these buffs, let's see how he gets on. Seraphine is back in the S tier now after increasing back to popularity in the bot lane. She has great wave clear, solid damage, fantastic utility with those heals and shields, and she's just such a fantastic champion to have on any team. Seraphine brings so much to the table in team fights, from huge 5-man ultimates to surprising high burst damage to backlines. There are so many supports you can pick alongside Seraphine in the bot lane too. Senna Sera is pretty busted if you haven't tried that yet, and as long as you don't int in the lane phase, she'll always scale into the late game like a dream. Finally, let's move on to support, and in the S tier we have Senna, Rakan, Blitzcrank, Thresh, Pyke, Annie, Maokai, Sona, Melio and Alistar. Yes, you heard that correctly, we've moved Alistar up into the S tier this week after yet another buff comes in for him. So many buffs have gone Alistar's way in the last few months, and this buff to his ultimate duration is the icing on the cake. Alistar's ability to engage for his team, to set up ganks, to dive and tank turrets for days, and peel like a beast too, are all why he's just such a great champion to play. And those players who can hit those WQ combos every single time are already winning plenty of games with the cow. Janna's been a bit under the weather recently too, so Riot are buffing her W and E this patch. She'll always be a great pick in solo queue with her amazing disengage, her ability to protect her carries and set up fights too with those slows and tornadoes. Throughout games, she's just so effective and she can keep everybody alive comfortably as long as she stays out the way herself. If you enjoy Janna, she'll always be a great option, and with these buffs, even more so. Leona is getting buffed this week too, with changes to her W's resistances and damage. She's definitely fallen short of the mark for a while now, pretty much ever since that big durability patch halfway through season 12. She is a great pick to play with certain AD carries though, who can capitalize on her CC to burst enemies down in seconds. And if you do get a bit too fed on Misfortune Leona, there's nothing the enemy bot lane will be able to do about it. She's always been a really fun support to play, so with these buffs it might be time to pick her back up again. Rakan has been completely and utterly busted and massively prioritized so far this season, so he's getting some nerfs this patch to his base armor and armor growth. However, we just don't feel like these are going to make too much of a difference whatsoever, as he's just such a slippery sucker with so much to offer. Rakan Xayah is still just as lethal as ever, but he works incredibly well with basically any other AD carry in the bot lane. If you haven't been playing Rakan already, you need to ask yourself why, because he's one of the best supports in the game and he's a lot of fun at the same time. And on that note, that's going to bring us to the end of our patch 13.8 tier list video. Don't forget, before you go, you can check out our low elo and high elo tier lists over on our website. And make sure you download our desktop app to get all the best builds, runes, counters, matchups, and plenty more valuable information to help you climb that ladder. Thanks as always for watching guys, and we'll see you all in the next video. Take care.